Brian, whenever you're ready.
Hi. How are you?
You guys all good now? You done breaking the microphones?
I like those shoes, by the way.
Oh, where's
Van?
Very sharp.
Thank you.
You look silent and profiling in there.
Listen, man, good old
Who's
TJ Maxx.
dressing you?
Me. TJ Maxx.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good stuff there.
Jill.
Pull my
Oh,
shoes.
thank you. That'd be
That's where
amazing.
the shoes came from.
We're about to start, so I just want everybody to get prepared.
You okay?
Okay. Welcome
Thanks,
on this fall Tuesday night to the Marlboro Township Board of Education workshop meeting, October 11th, 2022 at 7 p.m. at the Marlboro Memorial Middle School. Good evening, Vin. Can you call to order, please?
Sure. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Hello?
Mrs. Amster? Mrs. Branch?
Here.
Mr. Petruno?
Here.
Miss Piernick?
Here.
Mrs. Rosato? Mrs. Shrem?
Here.
Mrs. Salaci?
Here.
Mrs. Strafasi? And Dr. Heller?
Here. I will now read the Sunshine Law. Be advised that this meeting is being held in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act, Chapter 231, PL 1975, Sunshine Law, and that adequate notice of the date, time, and agenda has been sent to the Asbury Park Press and the News Transcript, and has been posted and filed with the Marlboro Township Clerk. Copies have also been sent to each district school and other area newspapers in accordance with the law. I am going to read in full. I'm not going to read in full, but will bring your attention to the statement of videotaping of public portion of Board of Education meetings, public comment statements, and no smoking or vaping on school grounds. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Today's positive quote: keep your face always towards the sunshine, and the shadows will fall behind you. Walt Whitman. Dr. Hibbs, any announcements, please?
Yes, sir. Always important to be in the sunshine, right?
Yes, it is.
All right. Let's start. I just want to highlight very quickly. Hi, everybody. Some of the things that our students and staff have done during the Week of Respect, that was last week. Just a random list, but some really amazing things happening in all of our buildings. We had read-alouds, we had coloring activities, songs, puppet shows, assemblies, acceptance activities, discussions with our student ambassadors. We had really awesome activities where students decorated leaves with respectful activities to hang in Robertsville, presentations by our SEL team, peer-to-peer conflict managers, classroom lessons, school-wide activities and challenges, random acts of kindness, discussions on the pillar of citizenship, slideshows, videos, counselor lessons, spirit weeks, food drives, and kindness posters. So we had just a great week full of respect. Just wanted to give a quick update on all the great things that we did.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
One more quick thing.
Yes.
You'll notice for everybody, in case you had any questions, and we included it in the agenda, we are approving tonight, or it's up for approval, a virtual/remote instruction plan. I have absolutely no intention of using this plan whatsoever. This is a mandate by the state of New Jersey. We were offered no input into whether we had into this plan. We simply have to have it approved. So again, absolutely no intentions of using this plan in any way, shape, or form whatsoever. So,
Thank you for explaining that.
yeah, of course.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go to the first public comments. For those who wish to speak, should state their full name and place of residence. Comments should be limited to 3 minutes. Please use the timer in front to be mindful of your time. Members of the public should be respectful and avoid back and forth or debate with administration, professionals, or board members responding to the inquiry or comment. Again, no back and forth. Be respectful and civil. School board members and administration withhold comment until after public comment. Vin,
Sure. First up is Mr. Lolansky.
Dr. Heller, Dr. Hibbs, members of the board, thank you again for giving us time to speak. Dr. Hibbs, that was great. That remark about Respect Week, that sounded like a great week, so thank you. Thanks for the board and everybody for that wonderful week. Just real quick, I'll take a few minutes of your time. You had mentioned, I know the subject is always, security is always evolving. We know that. And the subject's been brought up about the before and after care and other areas of the building as well. I know you mentioned one number, the amount in the high 80s, that would be the cost to have personnel, armed officers at the building. I only heard the one number. So you may have discussed this already. Forgive me if you did. We're not privy to executive session, obviously. So when we did it back in 2012, when we did the work, we also found there was private security companies that were both, they worked on the school, the private security companies that you can get that also have armed officers that we could have got at a lower rate. So my point is, I don't know if you discussed that already, but it's worth discussing. I have that information if you don't know where to reach out to. I do my business does security through my business, so I've been doing this for over 10 years. So if you need the information, if you don't know how to reach out to them, the number is not the same as you're paying for during the day, but it's not the number that you gave. So you might be having a significant savings by going for private security and still have an armed officer at other times that you might need them. And that's what I wanted to let you know tonight. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Vin?
Sure. Next up is Dahlia Solana.
Hi, good evening. My name is Dalia Salama, Montepello Drive, Marlboro. I would like to recognize Mrs. Carrie Marcos, Frank Dugan school nurse, for doing a great job. Just before the school year started, my daughter was diagnosed by diabetes type 1. She reached out to me to prepare everything ahead, know all info needed and medical paperwork. Now in school, she's doing an amazing job with my daughter, taking very good care of her and her blood sugar numbers, in touch with me with the daily updates. I feel my daughter is in safe hands at school. It's a blessing to have her there.
Thank you. Vin?
Sure. Mr. Steve Friedman.
Hi everybody, Steve Friedman. I'm a father of Sam Friedman. He's at Defino Elementary. Folks, this is the 4th board meeting I've attended since May of this year. This is the 4th time I'm bringing to your attention the fact that we have zero police presence for 5.5 hours every single day before and after care. Every single day for half the day, our children are sitting ducks in a school cafeteria or the school playground with absolutely no security. I've sent now countless emails to the superintendent, the board here, town council, the mayor. I've spoken to the superintendent on the phone and in person. I've posted to Mayor Hornick's Facebook page in a post where he, of course, was patting himself on the back for keeping our children safe. That is a lie. Our children are safe for only half the day. Did you all read my email to you dated October 6th? I'm going to go ahead and summarize things for you. According to the Center for Homeland Defense and Security, dating back to Sandy Hook in December 2012, 46 of school shootings have occurred during the hours corresponding to Marlboro's before care and after care, precisely between 7 and 8:30 in the morning and 2:30 and 6:30 in the afternoon. Okay, so that's nearly half of all school shootings occurring in that same exact time window. Let this sink in. In the last 10 years, the likelihood of a shooting occurring during classroom hours or during before and after care are nearly identical. I speak on behalf of before and after care parents when I say that I am absolutely disgusted that after pleading with all of you for close to 5 months, all I've gotten is blank stares and no action. Several of you are actively campaigning for re-election this coming November. Don't you think you should instead be working on the solution to keep our before and after care children safe? By the way, Old Bridge has figured this out a number of years ago. So did Howell. So neighboring towns right next door are running before and after care programs with police security. But you know, I will give you credit for one thing. My son Sam has now attended 2 board meetings with me, and you've given him such a valuable education, which cannot be taught in school. Yeah, you've shown him just how inefficient, manipulative, and dishonest this administration is. You've shown him that you have no shame in telling him, his fellow students, and parents that there is nothing more important than their safety. But through your inexcusable lack of action, lack of interest even, over the last 5 months, you have proven to all of us that your words are nothing more than campaign slogans and media bites. How can you expect this community to trust you when you can't even honor your commitment to student safety? Shame on you. And finally, in response to the superintendent's email to me last week, where he states that the budget for 22-23 has been approved and does not include this funding. Don't insult us with this nonsense. Sandy Hook happened
Thank you
in the
very
middle of
much.
December. We are 2 months before Sandy Hook occurred 10 years ago. All right? And you moved all of the
Thank you very
obstacles to
much.
put security in place
Thank you,
at
sir.
each one.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Vin?
Sure, next up is Mr. Moshe Grant.
Hi, Moshe Grant, 8 Sudbury Road. I want to take a second and thank this beautiful parent who came over here right before me. When it comes to the security of our children, everything that I'm about to say is pretty much nonsense. Thank you. I appreciate it. Mr. Heller, as the board president, I ask you that you note the following to your vice president, Mrs. Branch. I didn't find anything she has told me last meeting following my public comment to be offensive. I'm a grown-up adult. I easily accept criticism, whether right or wrong. With that said, there's a flip side to this coin, and I sure hope that the vice president do the same as an adult. You see, Mr. Heller, please convey to Ms. Branch that we as parents are not your students, and this here is not a classroom. We are community adult members at a Board of Ed meeting, and we are here to voice our concerns as community adults. Ms. Branch's personal belief as to the principles upon which respect should be displayed are directly linked to her own moral compass, and I respect that. I respect her moral compass. But with that said, my personal moral compass tells me that a board meeting is not a beauty contest. It's not a beauty pageant, where all participants simply act as spokespeople for world peace and believe that just by doing so, they will achieve world peace. In other words, this is not a made-up SEL class. This is real life with real concerned adults. You see, respect is a two-way street. If you want to be treated with respect, you must treat others with respect. And one of the most sincere forms of respect is actually listening to what others have to say. If a superintendent, in this case Mr. Hibbs, is not sharpening his ears with an aim to listen to public comments during board meetings, especially in relation to an ongoing administrative matter being addressed under his leadership as the head of such administration, such superintendent simply doesn't show respect. Therefore, he's not entitled to respect. Now, respect is not given. Respect is something you need to earn. I thank Mrs. Branch for her time at this board and wish her only the best as she opens a seat for others who will hopefully care much more for legitimate parental concerns instead of wasting public time for the depiction of their personal opinion of such particular parent's character, while the merits of the issues are being completely ignored. Thank you.
Thank you. Trish, you are able to respond if you want to. Okay. Well, last time, just when someone had spoken, we had agreed that if a name comes up, that we can, that's all I want to say.
That's
welcome.
it on both my lists.
I'm sorry?
That's it on both my lists.
Okay, thank you. So the administration and the board members will respond afterward, and we'd like to make a motion to close public comments. Do I have a second? Jess, any discussion? I see none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. The ayes have it. Would the administration or someone from the board like to make a comment?
Sure. Hello? You guys can hear me? No. Does your mic work? Hello? Oh, great. Well, first off, Dahlia, am I saying your name right? My daughter is also type 1 diabetic. And after this meeting, if you'd like to talk to me about that, that would be great, because she does mentor young women and boys and anyone who has T1D who might need that kind of support, because she got diagnosed at age 12 while in our district, and our nurses are amazing. So I'm glad you're having that same experience, because they are awesome, and different school, but again, same great nurses. So kudos to our nursing staff and our administration with regards to that. Mr. Grant, I think that there's so much to unpack there, but if you heard what you said is respectful toward me, and that's your opinion, and that's fine. I think that little speech speaks more to your character than to my character, so I will just leave it at thank you for your comments.
Anybody else? Yeah, I'll jump in very quickly. Dahlia, thank you so much. Nurse Marcus is absolutely amazing. For those of you who don't know Carrie, she is one of our incredible nurses, and she's at Dugan. We have an exceptional nursing staff, and she is one of them. I will pass that along and make sure that she knows that you said such nice things about her. That's it.
I actually have one more thing to say. I'm sorry. Is that okay? Mr. Friedman, I know that you are very frustrated, obviously, about security. As you know, we can't talk about security, but I can tell you that while it feels to you, which I understand, that we're not discussing it or that it's not important, trust me, we are discussing things. It is very important. So I know it doesn't feel that way to you, and I'm sorry about that. Okay. Well, anyway, I just want to say that
It's not nice.
I was just trying to let you know that none of us here are not discussing your concerns, and I know that that doesn't feel good to you right now, but we can't really talk about where we're going on security, but I just wanted to acknowledge that. Go ahead. There you go.
Would anybody else like to say anything?
I do, actually. I just had a question as well. Mr. Friedman, I was just wondering, because in your emails and everything, well, I do have children in after-school activities as well, but you never mentioned that you reach out to champions. So I was just curious if you actually did reach out to champions as well.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to move forward.
Can I?
Who's
just
that?
make?
Oh, sorry.
Sure. I actually, and I apologize for not responding to your email, Mr. Friedman. I have a copy of it here. I printed it out. I actually printed out a couple emails that I had received. I didn't know this information about the before and after school. Now, I think it's pretty apparent from the last couple meetings that I've been. I feel like this is something that we should be doing, and I know we're having the discussions, but I'd like to just, if I could just talk to my fellow board members for a second and the administration. I know that everyone here is doing the best that they can to keep the children safe. Nobody's wishing ill on children. I don't think that would ever be the case. Dr. Hibbs, we may not see eye to eye on a lot of things, but I know that when it comes to security, I like to think that we see the same, you know, the same goal in keeping every child in the district safe. Seeing these numbers, I'd like to hope that this could do, you know, like whatever differences we have as board members, let's just set those aside and really get this done for the, you know, for the district and for the kids. I mean, it just seems like something, I didn't know Old Bridge was doing it and Howell is doing it, you know, that makes it, it just makes it, you know, why, how can they and we can't? And I'm not saying it's your fault. I'm just, you know, I'm looking at you, but I'm not, you know, I just think as a whole, the board just needs to come together and we should focus and try and get this done, because this isn't, you know, this isn't something where I just don't see how you could fall on another side of this. Like, this is, you know, it's beyond the importance of each and every one of us, you know? It's the safety of the children. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Thank you.
I think we have to be mindful of the fact that going deeper is security discussions, and if we say we don't have security discussions in public, then we should not have security discussions in public.
Aldo, you definitely heard. I'm not going to go into security matters. I will tell you that I have been a strong advocate, and the administration, several board members who've been on the board for several years can attest to this. There have been things that we put in place over the last 4 or 5 years that no parent is aware of. That is, I have 4 kids. All of them have gone through this district. 2 of them are in this district. I care about my kids and my neighbor's kids and every other kid in this district. Okay? So to be accused of anything else is a gross misstatement. So I'm going to say, and I'm going to say that we are doing everything possible, and it has been in discussion behind closed doors with all the board members, and they are fully aware of, everyone on this dais is fully aware of what we've been discussing. All outside the box options. So I just want to say that. That is my statement, and that's where I'm going to go with that. So we're going to move forward to harassment, intimidation, bullying. Dr. Hibbs, harassment, intimidation, bullying report for September 15th to October 5th, 2022.
Sir, 5 total incidents, 3 of which were confirmed as HIV.
Thank you. Jen, can you please read financial and business operational matters?
Yes. Financial and business operation matters. The superintendent of schools submits the following resolutions for approval. 1, harassment, intimidation, bullying, HIV report. 2, home instruction. 3, approval of Chapter 27 emergency virtual or remote instruction program for the 2022-2023 school year. 4, out-of-district placement for the 2022-2023 school year. I so move.
Do I have a second? Jess, any discussion? I see none. Vin, roll call, please.
Mrs. Shrem?
Yes.
Mrs. Branch?
Yes.
Mr. Petruno?
No to number 3 and yes to everything else.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Piernick?
Yes.
Mrs. Salachi?
Yes.
And Dr. Heller?
Yes. Susie, can you please read personnel matters?
The superintendent of schools submits the following resolution for approval. 1, employment school psychologist. 2, employment instructional assistants. 3, substitute instructional assistant. I so move.
Do I have a second? Trish? Any discussion? I see none. Vin, roll call, please.
Mr. Petruno?
Yes.
Ms. Piernick?
Yes.
Mrs. Salachi?
Yes.
Mrs. Branch?
Yes.
Mrs. Shrem?
Yes.
And Dr. Heller?
Yes. Trish, can you please read policy development and communication relations matters, please?
The superintendent of schools submits the following resolutions for approval. 1, job description. 2, first reading of policy 2425, emergency virtual or remote instruction program. I so move.
Do I have a second? Susie, any discussion? I see none. Vin, roll call, please.
Mrs. Salachi?
Yes.
Mr. Petruno?
Yes.
Ms. Piernick?
Yes.
Mrs. Branch?
Yes.
Mrs. Shrem?
Yes.
And Dr. Heller?
Yes. We're going to move on to old business. Does anyone have any old business?
I actually just wanted to say real quick that now that, because I personally did not know Old Bridge and Howell did have the aftercare as well. I personally want to look into it more, just so I can see who they use for their aftercare and all that stuff. So I just want to say thank you for bringing it to my attention. I appreciate it.
Anybody?
There's no back and forth.
Anybody else, please? Comments? Yes, Aldo?
I appreciate that, Jen. I appreciate that. I just, the other times when it was brought up and, I tried talking about it, I wish it wouldn't have to come down to, let's look into it because other towns are. Like, we're Marlboro. We used to set the bar. Like,
That's not what I said. That's not what I said.
Well, that's what I heard. I'm just saying.
I'm glad that's what you heard, but that's not what I said.
That's fine. I'm not trying to
We've
go
been
back
looking into it for a long time, and we cannot be talking about it. I just said I want to look into what they are doing. Thank you.
Sir, you gotta please stop calling out, okay?
Any other old business, I see none.
No,
New-
I have.
You do?
one.
Okay.
Yeah. Mark, is it all right? Am I able to read an email from a community member?
So I guess I'd have to see what it is. I don't know if it was sent with an expectation
Yeah,
of
it was-
privacy. I don't know if it was sent involving a student matter. So again, it depends on the topic.
It's not involving student matter. It was sent to the entire board earlier today for 401 regarding.
Yeah, as long as there's no confidential student information in there, as long as the person didn't send it with an expectation of privacy, I'd have to see it. I don't know what it says, but those would be the caveats.
Okay. So we received this email today, and it's the fourth email that we've gotten. Now, I don't know who's responded to this community member, who hasn't. I feel like we should be having the conversation because, he's sent 4 emails and it doesn't seem to have garnered a response. And I think that as a board, maybe it just seems like there's stuff in here that we should be discussing. And let me just read it real quick. So it says, dear MTPS Board of Ed members, I wrote to the MTPS Board of Ed on September 20th, and after...
Although, is the person in the audience? Is the person in the audience? The only thing I would suggest is before you read it, maybe get their blessing to do so.
Yeah. Is it okay if I read the email that you sent earlier today? All right, just give me 1 second. All right, so it says, Dear MTPS, K through 8 Board of Education members, I wrote to the Marlboro Township Public Schools Board of Ed on September 20th after receiving no response again on the 24th to express my concern about the district allowing teachers to wear sexually oriented symbols in the presence of minor children in our schools, so as to identify themselves as individuals that could be enticed to enter into sexually based conversations with. These conversations could then be, as you know, kept hidden from parents, guardians. The superintendent has made that clear. I received a response from MTPS Board of Ed President Randy Heller acknowledging receipt of the email and stating he forwarded it to the administration. I'm not sure what that refers to, or if he thinks this is for someone else to deal with. The superintendent was not copied on my emails, as I view this as a Board of Education matter of general policy and general safety and security, not a day-to-day activity. Basically, he goes on to say he received the email from Dr. Hibbs on October 3rd, which he felt belittled and disparaged with the concerns he expressed to the Board of Ed, calling them absurd and as an alarmist. I did not see the Board of Education copied on his email to me. I followed up with another email to the Board of Education on October 4th below, and have not received any response. I'm asking you to take action or explain why you refuse to do so. In my initial email to the Board of Ed, I explained that although we don't believe any of our teachers to be a threat, the situation is ripe for disaster. At minimum, poses serious legal exposure. Although the superintendent seems to think teachers initiating sexual conversations with children is somehow a form of protected speech, an expression of inclusivity, and strongly supports the practice, I gave information as to how creating a culture of sexual openness between teachers and children in schools is a recipe for disaster. The superintendent very strongly disagreed, stating that allowing a culture of sexual openness between teacher and children could never lead to molestation, in quotes, calling the notion absurd. I must say I'm shocked and in disbelief that a public school superintendent would be unfamiliar with, if not all of well-documented New Jersey school cases below. And it goes on to list there's some web links here that are cases that the writer cites over the last 2 years. Now, I haven't gone into actually research each case, but just looking at the links there, and to go on to what he said, I'm not gonna go further and read the, there's a whole other page, but I think we need to discuss this. I don't know, what we can, I'm all about, I know that, I heard in your opening remarks, you talking about inclusivity and all that, and I think it's fantastic. There's nothing wrong with inclusivity, but at the same point, the notion of asking, or not asking, but, I'm just trying to understand where the district falls on this, because I'm a little confused. I mean, is this something that we allow, teachers, are these conversations that teachers would be allowed to have, or is this something that has to go to a counselor level, Is that something can someone explain to me what is happening in our buildings in terms of this, and also if the situation was to arise? Now, I don't know how often it happens, I don't know what the figures are, but if a child was to reach out and want assistance, first of all, how would they go about getting the assistance, but how do we know that it's a qualified individual, and I'm not trying to say that, a math teacher is not qualified, I'm sure they are very well qualified to teach math, but when it comes to sexual identity and issues like that, are we going down an avenue that could potentially cause a situation, that we don't want to see, by inviting those conversations so openly? I don't know, I'm just wondering where we stand and what, I want to basically see what it looks like from start to finish, if you wouldn't mind, so that I can have a better understanding on it, and so that we can discuss it.
I'd like to start first off by saying I've only heard back from one of those superintendents so far, and have armed guards for their aftercare. I heard directly from their superintendent. So I will absolutely reach into Old Bridge, but I want to make sure I conveyed that right away. That's A. Great questions. I need a little clarification, though.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much I can offer. I don't know much about it, but,
Bringing it.
Well, I have a question.
Bring
So I'm a counselor. I'm not a teacher. I'm a counselor. So when kids need to see the counselor, they see me. But they see me for divorce, if somebody's parent has cancer, if they have anxiety, whatever. Is this in regards to LGBTQ or in general when you need support?
Well, I mean, if you read the email, it seems like the concern is really, you know, I think it's, I love the idea of creating a space that the children are comfortable if they have an issue and they need to approach someone. My concern is just who they're having the you know, and again, you know, is a math teacher qualified to have those conversations with the child? And
so is this in particular, we're focusing on LGBTQ, right? I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
yeah, I mean, I think that's what the email.
And the lanyards say, I haven't seen the lanyards, so what did the lanyards say exactly? I mean, I saw the email, but
yeah,
is that confirmed?
I think it says. Let me just
I think
see.
it said I am.
Dr. Hibbs, do you know what the lanyards happen
Yeah,
to say?
the lanyards say I am here, but I want to go back for a second. I'm confused on what outcomes you're afraid of.
I mean, so I know that we have all, you know, we have a fantastic staff, and I'm not, I don't want to, by answering your response, I don't want to paint myself in a bad light, but I think it needs to be acknowledged that it just makes sense to me reading the email that is it, 99.9% of people, and including our faculty, I guarantee you, all have the best intentions for students, but could it go south opening up sexual conversations, and basically saying I'm here to sexual conversations with someone, like I understand, teachers go through background checks and things like that, but does that mean that, at that point it's okay to just have an I am here lanyard and automatically be qualified to hold those conversations with students?
But you're not answering the question. What exactly are you afraid of?
Well,
I'm confused
afraid
on what
of-
you think is going to actually occur, sir. And then I'll answer all your questions.
I mean, it could lead to so many different possibilities.
but
In
that's-
my head, I
Like what?
What if a child approaches someone with an I am here lanyard and conversations, go someplace that they shouldn't, and it ends up going someplace it shouldn't altogether, like, the relationship between the two. I'm not saying it does, listen, like I said, I'm going to relate this to the police force. When it comes to the police force, like, they've taken a lot of heat in the last couple of years, and you know what? I have, like, so many of my friends are officers, and we talk about it, and the way they explain it to me is, you know what, like, our department is 100 guys. Now, let me tell you something. 95 of those guys, I'd have in my house for dinner, no problem, sit down with my family, But there's a guy or two that, yeah, I probably wouldn't want to interact with, so, I'm just saying, not everyone is, it would be naive to think that it can't happen here, and are we...
What's going to happen here? Are you actually saying that our teachers would enter into inappropriate relationships with students?
It was confusing, actually. I heard you say it, but I don't think that's what you meant.
I think,
didn't
are you
listen.
saying...
It's not a back and forth.
No,
Everyone's
no.
been spoken to about that. Mr. Patrono, I'm just trying to clarify what
I'm
it is you're
reading
actually
the email,
saying.
and I got to be honest. I'm getting it seems like a valid, like, in my mind as I read the email, I would hate to see it happen, and I don't know of any teachers
What's
on.
it?
I don't.
I'm confused too. I'm sorry.
What are you alluding? I'm sorry. Are you?
All right.
Are
let
you
me just
alluding?
fin-
No,
let me
I just wanna
finish the
understand-
email, and you'll understand. So to be clear, all the links above, and there's about 10 links, 15 links. To be clear, the above cases occurred in the absence of a school environment where teachers were encouraged to interact with children in sexually based dialogue. As for the superintendent's notion that sexual discussion could not possibly lead to a sexual assault, the fact that I disagree with him. There are, as a matter of fact, more cases of sexual assault or molestation against school students in New Jersey alone over the past 2 years than school shootings across the entire country over the past 20 years. Given these facts, why would we create policy and take security measures for one and not the other? I'd like to know whether or not the board intends to take any action on this. This is a matter of, this is not a matter of day-to-day operations for the superintendent. Rather, it's a matter of district policy, staff and/or student conduct policy, dress code as it is attached to the MTPSID lanyard policy, and a matter of safety and security policies. Is all that is necessary to initiate a dialogue with a child about sexual preferences, sex and/or sex practices, the wearing of the sexual symbol on an MTPS school lanyard? I mean, that kind of explains the question a little better. Like, you know.
So can I jump?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
I'm hoping to have a conversation about
Yeah,
it because I'm
so-
seeing the email and I'm really trying to get. Go ahead.
No. So you keep saying it, so I'm a little confused. But so I read the note this afternoon when I got it as I was coming here, and so I think when I read it, it's talking about the presence. I put my glasses on. Hold on, sorry. Allowing teachers to wear sexually oriented symbols in the presence of minor children as to identify themselves so that as individuals that children could be enticed to enter into sexually based conversations with. I guess I read that and I was thinking, okay, people wear stickers, right? I don't know that I'm feeling, the language was a little off to me, enticed. Like, it's almost like there's sinister, like, intention. So that
I can see your point. When I say it, I think, like, so my it is the hypothetical worst case scenario.
Okay.
Well, the way I hear it, when you say entice, it's like almost having a puppy dog and enticing the child to go with the individual, or enticing them with because there have been footage of that and studies that have done those.
Well, no,
but
I don't
you understand
know.
the word entice.
Yeah, I mean,
just,
listen,
just
the
want you
word
to-
entice is not my word. It's in the email. What I'm saying is that if the email, not the email, if the lanyard is putting the faculty member out there as a person that can be opened up to for these matters,
Aldo, are you saying the it being the wrong, that a child feels that they could trust somebody because they're wearing the lanyard and it's the wrong individual?
Right. Like, what if it's
Is that what you're trying to
like, what if it's
say?
the wrong individual?
It's
or
the
what
wrong,
if,
so
like,
it's the right conversation because it's being encouraged, but to the wrong individual.
listen,
Because your example with the police, out of the 100, 95 are trustworthy. There's those 5 that you can't trust. You're afraid that that's how it could be in the school with the teachers? Is that what you're trying to get?
Yeah, all I'm saying is it possible that, is it possible that something like that could happen? I don't think it would be prudent to rule it out altogether, saying we're Marlboro, it doesn't happen here.
Let me jump in. So first off, I actually, being that we're reading emails completely out of context, I'm going to read my response to Mr. Jankowski as well, because this email is an email, right? I will say on the surface, I don't agree with this email in any way, shape, or form, and I'm saying that respectfully. Sadly, at times, you can't disagree with people, even respectfully, without it being an argument. This is not an argument. It's just sometimes that we just don't have to agree. So my email to Mr. Jankowski is this. Dear Mr. Jankowski, based upon our research and analysis, teachers have a First Amendment right to wear lanyards with the inclusive statement, I am here. The statement is not profane, obscene, pornographic, promote violence, drug use, etc. Importantly, I believe that banning teachers from wearing such messages would send the wrong message to our staff and students, and it will be contrary to everything we stand for as a district. Lastly, I take strong exception to your suggestion that this inclusive message could somehow lead to the molestation of a child. This is simply absurd. Such alarmist sentiments only stoke fear and hate and have no place in our district. Every staff member of the Marlboro Township School District undergoes a thorough criminal background check that is approved by the state of New Jersey, and then I concluded with, this will be a final communication from me on this matter, as we are very busy overseeing our incredible district. So I just want to make sure that you knew the context of what I said, as I was accused of belittling and disparaging, neither of which I did in that email, clearly. So let's talk about your concerns. I'm still a little unclear, but I'm going to do the very best I can with what you've said. Let's not mistake a lanyard for anything more than a lanyard, because a child reaches out to somebody that they care about and trust because of relationships that are built. So the first thing I'm going to say is about our staff members. If you peel this all the way back, it's inherently there that our staff members would make this decision to enter into an inappropriate relationship with a child. And you can say that you think the world of our staff members, but it's kind of hard to say you think the world of our staff members, but then you think that they'll become sexually active with our kids or molest our children.
I'm not saying all of them. I'm just saying to say that it wouldn't happen or it can't happen here is completely naive.
Yeah, that light right now could fall on my head, right? So we hire the very best. We really do. They go through a rigorous process. They are all background checked. There is nothing questionable in anyone's file when they come here. So, in my opinion, as a leader, we can't cease to lead because something may or may not happen. I mean, I could simply say, let's put masks back on in case COVID returns. I'm sure that would not be a popular suggestion, right? Not saying I'm going to do that, but that is along the same lines. Let me talk to you about the process of what happens here. And I don't think it just should be about, I don't think it should be about LGBTQ, and let's just talk about children in general. Our job, our fundamental job here, aside from the curriculum piece, which is super important, is to make sure that we're here for each and every child and make sure they feel like they matter. Every child, you were never a teacher, not meant in any disrespect, I have been. When you have a class of 20 kids and you have them for the entire year, they really become your family. And sometimes you have 100 kids or 150 kids. You have a responsibility. Every teacher has a responsibility of building relationships with those children. And what happens is, lanyard or not, when I taught 4th grade, I didn't need my kids to see a lanyard to know that they could talk to me, because I built relationships with them. And whether it's about mom being sick, or dad passing away, or the dog dying, or Columbine, right? These are all things that personally I've dealt with as a teacher. We want kids to go to people that they trust. We hire people that are of the highest caliber, both morally and work ethically. So I don't have any doubts in our children. This concept really is about students feeling safe. Lanyards or no lanyards, we want kids to go to people that they trust. Absent that, the mental health of children is something we seriously worry about if they can't go to someone that they need to talk to. So, if this happens in our buildings, what will happen is that if it's a math teacher, or an English teacher, or a gym teacher, or if it's one of our gen ed psychologists, for those of you that don't know, we have a very, very strong SEL team in our district, which is comprised of school counselors, CST members, gen ed psychologists, one at each middle school, and then gen ed social workers that split our 6 elementaries, 5 elementaries plus Abbott. So we have more mental health supports here than most places, and we've just continued to add that. If a math teacher was the person that the child found to be the person they trusted more than anybody else, and they reached out to ask any question, math teacher would have a responsible conversation and then would involve the necessary people from the district. So if it was, for instance, the concept of abuse in the home, we would involve the principal, and then we would involve the gen ed psychologist or the social workers, and then follow our policy on abuse. If it was the concept of identity, of gender identity, that teacher would then reach out to our in-house people so that we could all work together. And I want to be very clear, we will always be here for each and every kid, whether a staff member wears a lanyard or not, whether or not individual community members write down horrible things like enticed to enter sexual conversations. Let me be very clear. We are not enticing or inviting conversations about sex with any child in this district. Absolutely not. Let me say it again. We are not enticing, inviting, waving banners, skywriting, come talk to us about sex, sex acts, or anything along those lines. What we are doing is we are supporting each and every one of our kids. And we will continue to do so as long as I'm here. Period. Whether it's the concept of all those different difficulties that are presented. So again, I have to just say, I think that this is a gaslight conversation,
Right.
100%. I think at the end of the day, I'm still a little unclear about what your fear is. If your fear is you're worried about our teachers having inappropriate conversations, they will not. They have been 100% trained to reach out to all of our resources in those buildings and then do not go rogue. To be honest, our teachers in this moment, they want support. They seek support. They will seek Dr. Sabo at MMS. They will seek Dr. Baskin at Memorial. They will seek Dr. Beery. They'll seek everybody in our district that can help, because in the end, we absolutely want to support each and every one of our kids. But we're not initiating conversations. But we certainly aren't turning kids away. Because when you turn a child away, horrible things happen like suicide. And that's not something we are ever, ever, ever going to do.
I listen, I'm glad to hear that. When I hear you speak of inclusivity and all that, that's my, honestly, I don't have any concerns in my mind about whether or not you guys have, enough people that they could turn to or things like that. My concern when reading the email was really the way that we're conveying the message. Like, is the land, and I don't want to go back to the keep going back to the lanyard, but
we convey it, I think, pretty well. And Mr. Paterno, you mentioned not seeing eye to eye. I have no problems looking you eye to eye. I got to be honest, if you had a question, you could always reach out to me. But if you talk about eye to eye, wouldn't the respectful thing have been just to reach out to have a conversation? Because I could have told you all this, and then you could have still had this conversation here. But I struggle with, sometimes maybe offering me the opportunity to answer some of your questions. I'm always around for you. I'm always here. I'm always available. And I could have told you all of that, prior.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I have no problem discussing it with the community listening.
No, nor do I. You mentioned we don't see eye to eye. I don't think that's accurate. I think, unfortunately, I think you don't give me the opportunity to respond to you eye to eye at times.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? That's fine. I appreciate that sentiment.
Okay.
Based on your comments at the last meeting, I don't know. I don't. You didn't mention me by name, but I think we all know you were talking about myself. With Mr. Ballone. I went back and rewatched it, and I wholeheartedly disagree with you. I apologize for that, but.
Disagree with me about what?
I don't think that I was disrespectful in any manner.
I didn't call you by name, sir. That was a
Excuse me?
general conversation with everybody in being respectful and being mindful of being respectful. That's what that was.
Okay, about the two board members that you received several emails about, but that wasn't me, right? That's fine. Don't worry about it. So anyway, going back to these lanyards, is that, do we feel that that's the most prudent route to
Yeah, I think I've already answered that conversation. Yeah, I think that our staff members are fully trusted and trustworthy. I think I answered all your questions. So yeah.
Is the board?
I'm confused though. What's the prudent route to what? I guess that's what I can't figure. I'm not
I don't
understanding
know.
what
I'm
you're
saying,
asking.
like,
That's why
it's
the prudent route to.
Like, do we
To
want to
what?
do you want to have educators walking around wearing this stuff that could potentially spark a conversation? And again, I'm not in the school every day, so I'm asking, what is
Well,
everyone else's opinion? Like, are you guys comfortable with that, or?
So I'm trying to understand so I am here is a lanyard, but I feel like different teachers have different lanyards too. Like there's lanyards that say I am a safe space, right? So I guess what we're thinking of is there's an issue with wearing different lanyards. You want uniform lanyards in fear that if they see those, the I am here, it will provoke, or maybe the kids will want to talk to the teachers who have those lanyards more than they would do so without seeing those lanyards, right? I just want to make sure this is what we're talking about, right? Does that make sense? Like, that's what I got from the email. That's what we need to address. So my question would be to Mark then, are we allowed to prohibit teachers from wearing certain lanyards? I guess that would be my question for policy.
I'll answer it in a general sense. I think that, like students, like the Supreme Court has said, staff members also have First Amendment rights. And I think that was the point of Dr. Hibbs' email, to say that if the lanyard advocated violence, drug use, it was profane, abusive, obscene, those are all things that are not protected speech. But a simple message, I am here, my opinion, would be protected speech.
I mean, listen, it might be protected. I just, you know, the concern for me really, you know, and again, I'm sure, you know, there is scenarios where children may feel more comfortable speaking to someone, you know, someone in school instead of at home. I just, like, to me, it just seems like when seeing something like this, it just seems like an overreach, you know, because I don't know. Like,
so
this
are you asking for us to, as a board,
well, I'm basically
say to people you can't wear a certain message? Is that
I
what
don't
you're
know.
asking?
I'm asking what everyone's opinion on this email is, because he's sent 4 emails about it, and we haven't had a conversation. So I'm trying to understand. You know, I can't reply all to everyone and say, "What do you guys think?" So I'm saying it now. What do you guys think?
Well, I'll tell you what I think. I know there's people in this audience that don't care what I think, but I have thoughts and I will share them. I've seen emails written to me about me and me speaking, and I'm sorry that's offensive to some of you, but I will do it because it's my right, as it is your right. So thank you for that. So when I look at, so I read these emails as well, and when I see it, I see things like, although the superintendent seems to think teachers initiating sexual conversations, it's not at all my understanding of that. So I'm seeing this type of language in this email, and I'm not sure. I mean, you know, you talk to the lawyer says it's okay. We can't say you can't wear a sticker that says I am here. I'm not quite sure. And you're saying you're not sure what you're asking, so it's hard for me to respond to something if you're not really sure what you're asking. So it's just, I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm just trying to like understand. Like you want us to discuss it, but in the end, legally, we could make that policy, but would the policy stand? I mean, if it's illegal to us to make that policy, correct?
Yeah, we have to be mindful of staff First Amendment rights, just like we have to be mindful of student First Amendment rights in terms of trampling on those rights. And so, yes, I'd be very concerned about a policy that said a teacher could not wear a lanyard that says, I am here.
Okay. So I mean, I'm not trying to be it might feel like I'm questioning you, and I am questioning you. I'm just trying to understand, because
I'm just trying to get I'm trying to take a barometer on the board. Like I said, I get this email, I can't hit reply all and say, what do you guys think? So that's ultimately, I read the email and I'm just asking, what do you guys think?
So Aldo, you want our opinion on the lanyard that saes I am here? You want to know how you feel about
what's
it?
your opinion about it first? I mean, I guess that you're bringing it up, so
you know, parts of the email do make sense, and parts of them, you know, parts of it are going down, you know, a stretch, but, you know, can you say that the worst possible case can't happen? I don't, you know, I wouldn't say that. I don't know. I really don't. I'm not really sure what, you know, I'd like to hear, like, what other people think.
You want to hear our thoughts on it?
Yeah, like, I just, you know.
To be honest,
It's a lot
I,
to
the
take
three
in.
words "I am here" I think is really nice. It's welcoming. It opens up a conversation.
Sir, if you want to speak at the microphone during the public participation, you're welcome to do so. This is a board
And it
discussion
allows-
now, okay?
sorry.
Thanks.
And it allows the student to know that a teacher is there for them, whether the student goes to talk to them or not. Those three words, "I am here."
That's my thoughts too. I am here just means I'm here for you. And that's, I mean, our students go to school every day and see their teachers and other teachers, and they trust them. My students come to school and they trust me, and yeah, they tell me things, you know, but if I feel like they're telling me something that could harm them, then I know that I need to go to a counselor. You know, I'm not going to steer them wrong. I love all my students, and I know that they trust me. So, and I know that my two students in our town, in our schools, they trust their teachers, and I know that they go to them.
And
So-
Jen, what would you do if perhaps someone came to you and you didn't know the answer?
I would send them to someone who they could speak to, either
That's-
their
yeah.
teacher or a counselor, the
And
assistant principal
that's
who
what
is
happened
there.
here.
I
Every time.
actually think that the "I am here" is nice. It's good for the kids. Because those that don't go to their teachers know that they can. Some kids go to teachers, some kids don't. And they bottle it up. This allows them to open up a little bit more.
I mean, I can
Aldo, I just have a
appreciate
question. Is the lanyard is what color?
that. I have no idea.
Is the lanyard representative of a certain group? Or is it just a white lanyard that says the words "I am here"?
I don't know. I don't know that it really, in fact, kind of matters directly what it is. Like,
You know, let's just take it a step further. Let's say, God forbid, something like this was to happen. With, you know, getting an email like this, basically summarizing, you know, like a worst case scenario, if it was to happen, are we, as the board,
what's it? If it was to happen, a
if,
conversation?
no, if like something inappropriate was to happen, you know,
So it's
are
not
we
legal.
culpable as board members, like, or, you know, like, so now we got this email. If nothing happens with it, and God forbid something happens,
No, I don't think it's really up to the board. I think this is an administrative decision. I think Dr. Hibbs eloquently explained how these situations are handled. When a student goes to a teacher, if it's outside the teacher's wheelhouse, it sounds like it's referred to the appropriate counselor and so forth. This is something I think that's been thought through in great detail in terms
Yeah,
of what the
and
process
discussed.
and procedure is. So no, I don't think the board would be liable if, God forbid, a million times a student was somehow improperly targeted by a teacher because the student went to the teacher because the teacher had a lanyard that said, "I am here." You know, if somebody's going to do something horrible to a student, quite frankly, I don't think they need a lanyard to cause that to happen, quite frankly. These are ill people, obviously, and the lanyard is not going to be the impetus.
I mean, you know, I appreciate you guys all giving me your input on this. You know, let's just pray it never happens. You know, and at the same point, you know.
so you're not concerned about the conversations, you're concerned about
I-
targeting?
I want the kids to feel comfortable going to whoever they need to. My concern is like the, you know, like just advertising, you know, I don't know.
I don't think
Just so many, you know, like I said, worst case scenario, I just don't, the idea of it is very, you know, it's just concerning. You know, and then I don't know, you know, I just, like I said, there's so many, like, it could just go so many different directions, and I think this email goes into like a whole bunch of them, and you know, that's like when I was reading it, that's when I was like, man, like the ESS employees, like, so substitutes, are they wearing these?
Not that I know of, absolutely not. And they're also background checked too.
Yeah, I know,
think
but
you
so
have
were
to,
all the teachers that committed acts that they shouldn't have. I mean, we can't just rest on a background check, come on. Like,
Well, I mean.
I don't know what to say, Mr. Materno. At the end of the day, you're making the claim that something could happen. Something could happen no matter what. And it doesn't, and honestly, to be really honest with you, because, you know, and I'll throw this out again, I'd love for you to come into schools to see what we actually do. Because at the end of the day,
you're misunderstanding.
No,
listen,
I'm not.
I know you guys are
was
doing.
in the middle of a flow. At the end of the day, well, I was kind of rude. You know, at the end of the day, it doesn't take a lanyard to develop a relationship. Wearing a lanyard doesn't mean that a child's going to come talk to me. A child will come talk to me when they trust me. If something horrible would happen, as Mr. Zittimer said, it doesn't take a lanyard. That is just the accusation that's being thrown out in the moment.
Right. I agree with your, sentiment that coming into the schools, I don't even think I need to. I'm sure.
I would actually hope that you would, as a board member, to come see, because
no, I'm
you
saying,
make claims
I'm
that
sure
we're not,
I wouldn't
that,
see
that
anything.
things could happen. I'd love for you to see what we actually do.
I know for a fact that, what we're discussing is the absolute worst case scenario, and that, I think probably every person I've come in contact with, it would never be an issue with, because the people I've met are all stellar. It's just bringing up a worst case scenario, and that was all. That's all I wanted to see, like where we stand on it, what the process was. So I appreciate the explanation.
Thank you, Aldo. Any other old business, please? Any new business? I see none. We are going to move on to public's comments. Those who wish to speak should state their full name and place of residence. Comments should be limited to 3 minutes. Please use the timer in front to be mindful of your time. Members of the public should be respectful and avoid back and forth or debate with administration, professionals, or board members responding to the inquiry or comment. Again, no back and forth. Be civil and respectful. School board members and administration will withhold comment until after public comments. Vin?
Sure. First up is Mr. Moshe Grant.
Hi, Moshe Grant, 8 Sudbury Road. First of all, Mr. Aldo, I have to give it to you because it looks like there's a bunch of people around us who like stickers. So I'll take my take on stickers. I heard this whole lecture by a lot of people over here, especially Mr. Hibbs, about the stickers and appropriate stickers and non-appropriate stickers. And what's absurd is the belief that it's okay for an adult, whether they're pre-screened, not pre-screened, teachers, or whatever you want to call them, to be walking around little children with sexual stickers on them. Mr. Hibbs, for a child, a sticker on a teacher is a banner. You said we're not putting up banners, but that's exactly what you're doing. You have a living, breathing banner that a child having an emotional attachment to. I love the teachers in these schools. I love the teachers in our country, and especially in our township. But no one is perfect. I am not perfect. You're not perfect. No one is perfect. Now, with everything I heard everyone over here say, I can tell you from the bottom of my heart, as a loving parent and a member in my community, I want my children as far away from you as possible. And that's my opinion based on the First Amendment right to say what's on my mind, because your beliefs are not the same as my beliefs. And I have my own spiritual beliefs, religious beliefs, and you're contradicting them. So speaking of the Constitution that have been wiped out completely over the last 2 years over here, in my opinion, now you're going to use the same Constitution to work against parents, where you didn't give the parents the right they have under the Constitution. I just find it ironic. I'm sorry, it's my opinion. Now, another thing that I found really funny over here is that it looks like some board members over here who, for 5 months, almost 5 months, avoided one of the simplest and most legitimate questions from a member in our community, that he talks about security. Now, yeah, you're talking about measures of security that you do behind the scene that no one is aware of and we don't know about it, and you talk about it behind closed doors, but if these parents over here knows that there's no visible security for 5.5 hours in school, every criminal in the world knows it. So you can talk to us about whatever you want, but actions, it's actions that speak louder than words. And you don't change your mind 2 seconds before elections. It's obvious what you're doing. This is why everyone started laughing. It's pathetic. Sorry. That's my opinion.
Thank you. Vin?
Sure. Next up is Mrs. Annette Seward.
Annette Seward, 18 Nashua Drive. If I could please just continue the conversation from a parent's perspective, why is the lanyard only to help children who may be a part of the LGBTQ community feel safe and be able to approach the parents? What about the children of the community that might be struggling with an abusive parent, or the children that might be struggling with some dark thoughts? Why has it always come down to just supporting the children that may be a part of one specific group of children that might be struggling? While I am very aware of those struggles being legit, I'm not dismissing them in any case, I don't even really have a problem with the lanyard, so to speak. I'm just trying to figure out why the safe space of the classroom is only for one specific group of children that may be struggling. I also am a little uncomfortable with the narrative that school is the safe space, maybe implying that home is not. My children know that my home is also a safe space, and they don't need to go to a teacher necessarily to feel safe. And while I respect the student-centered approach of policy 5756, I'm also hearing none of you speak about how you would approach the parents if the child had an issue at school and needed to go to a teacher. And I see here it's because the school district shall accept a student's asserted gender identity, parental consent is not required. A student need not any threshold of diagnosis or treatment to have his or her gender identity recognized and respected by the school district, or staff members. In addition, a legal court-ordered name change is not required. So we're setting this environment in the school to keep secrets from your family. And while I'm sensitive to the children that need that confidentiality, I also would like to visit the other side of the discussion where maybe going to the parents would be a healthier approach to open that line of communication and not set the climate that school is safe and home is not. So maybe we can consider lanyards without any type of LGBTQ agenda attached to them. Maybe we could switch the lanyards over to just an I am safe, this is a safe place, you can trust me, about all things that children may be struggling with. Because what if there's a child in the classroom that is in an abusive household and they don't feel like they can go to their teacher because just that lanyard is being worn? So while I'm not disagreeing with the lanyard at all, I encourage the conversation. I have my 10th grade art teacher is actually still a friend of mine because I felt safe in her room. So I need to reiterate that I support the teachers who are there for the children. If I had followed the path of being an educator, I would act the same way. But maybe we can discuss a safe space for all children and not just those that are in one specific group. Thank you.
Thank you. Vin?
Sure. Miss Angela Vysotsky.
Good evening, Angela Colby-Vysotsky, Marlboro Township. I just have a question for you. Recently, the NJSLA scores have been sent home, and I was wondering if it would be a good proposal for the next general meeting for us to hear from Mr. Ballone and what the general ed, what the special ed, and what the rankings are that we could see from the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Vin?
Miss Phoebe Dewan.
Phoebe Dawood, 3 Windcrest Road, Marlboro. Well, I can't move the mic, so.
Take it out of the stand.
Oh, sorry. Okay, there we go. Phoebe Dawood, 3 Windcrest Road, Marlboro. I'm just going to read because I don't want to forget any of the points. So I know other members of the community have already addressed what happened last board meeting, but I wanted to also express my disappointment with how my words got twisted. So, because unfortunately, unlike other districts, there's no back and forth in a public session, and that makes it very ineffective. And again, easy to misinterpret someone's comment. Some people sitting here today decided to put words in my mouth at the last board meeting instead of giving me the opportunity to further clarify what was obvious. Mr. Pallone, when I made my comments at the September 20th board meeting, I didn't expect that you would put words in my mouth or twist my word as you did. I was also surprised that after all this, Mrs. Branch doesn't know what's being introduced in the curriculum, and I think you should educate yourself a little bit more about the curriculum before making uninformed comments and inaccurate comments. When I used the word inclusive, I was referring to the LGBT lifestyles, not the disabled, obviously. Unfortunately, when we hear the word inclusive nowadays, the only thing that comes to mind is LGBT without the need to further clarify anything else. This has been the concern of many parents and not the teaching about the disabled children or population. Does being inclusive mean that you're disregarding other people's religious beliefs and suppressing their values? It's a question for you. What will you do to show respect for family values and religious beliefs to those who do not wish to teach your kids about illicit sexual acts and the LGBT lifestyles? I will say it again, just like I said last time, at the last board meeting, parents in Marlboro are not stupid, and we are not playing games or hiding around the bush here. We're all supportive of the disabled community, but let's not mix this with attempting to promote the LGBT lifestyles and brainwashing those innocent kids. One does not choose to be disabled, but one can definitely choose to change their sexual orientation or preferences if they please. We need to focus on academics and all the learning loss that we had. And I think no one can disagree that there's always room for improvement there, right? So please make sure you focus on that. We don't pay all these high taxes to get our kids to learn nonsense in school and lack academically. If people exit the public school system, which many have already, 1 minute, just 1 second.
I'll give you 30 seconds.
Thank you. If people exit the public school system, which many have already, their taxes will eventually follow and your jobs will be at risk. So please keep that in mind, the taxpayers' opinions and their values in developing the Marlboro school curriculums. Thank you.
Thank you. Vin?
Sure. Mr. Michael Olonsky.
Michael Olonsky, 64 Stony Hill. I just want to thank the board. A few meetings ago, I did ask that you reconsider reading all the resolutions again in full. So it does make a difference to the public. We do see it, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Vin?
Eli Olam. Did I mispronounce that? I'm sorry.
Ali Alam, 31 Eli Circle. I just want to say, on this topic of the so-called lanyards, which they're not, none of you is aware what they are, apparently, from this discussion. You don't know what they are, and Dr. Hibbs, if you're not aware of what's going on, it's a problem, or if you're not aware, that's also a problem. These so-called lanyards, these are being sold by the NEA-LGBTQC.org website to teachers. It's an LGBTQ flag with the word "I'm here." The purpose, if you go on their website and you read it, the purpose of these is for the teachers to tell the kids that you can come and talk to me about these issues. These are not simple lanyards or decorations, right? And I've seen those in our schools. I've seen stickers. The purpose that is cited on their website is that it is to invite students to have the conversation. The teachers who are going on the website and buying those stickers and those badges, they're aware of what they are. They know that there's a QR code attached to it. Once you scan it, and I did, The stuff that's on there is outrageous. The stuff that's there is about, I'll give you an example. How to make your own vibrator, BDSM, right? This is when you scan that QR code, this is where you get to, right? It's not lanyard. Don't make it so simple as it's just a flag or it's just a, I don't know, a decoration. It's not. If we're not aware that this is going on in our school, I saw that sticker on a classroom door in the Marlboro Middle School. If we're not aware that our teachers are doing that, then it's a problem. You're talking about trust. It starts there. Thank you.
Thank you. Vin?
Mr. Leo Dableman?
Leo Dableman, 51 Buttonwood Drive. So first of all, my comments for the board today, very different than my comments for Dr. Hibbs. For the board, thank you guys so much for actually having a discussion on a complex topic in front of the community. This almost never happens, and it's very much needed and wonderful to hear. So thank you for taking on that challenge and actually engaging in that conversation for quite some time here. Dr. Hibbs, on the merits of this issue with these lanyards or whatever, I am firmly on your side. I completely subscribe to everything you said. I think both Aldo and Anthony know this. I actually believe in everything you said. But that's just me personally. I'm just one parent. When my wife and I were starting a family and moving to Marlboro, we made a conscious choice. Do we go to a cheap tax township and send our kids to private school where they're sheltered? Or do we come to a town where there's excellent public schools and kids would actually be exposed to real world issues and challenges as they evolve in society and get prepared for real life in ways that we can't prepare them? I can always pay for an extra math tutor. I cannot pay for an extra life tutor. My wife and I had that conversation and we made that choice. A lot of other people made a very different choice. A lot of them came here today to voice their concern to you guys. They speak through Aldo. We all talk about the fact that there is no direct back and forth. We try to find a way to have the board speak on behalf of the residents, which is how it should be, or the best we've come up with so far. Aldo tried to do that today. Dr. Hibbs, please give him a little grace, right? This was not a gaslight conversation. These are sincere concerns of real parents who feel incredibly passionately about this, who are very concerned. I can tell you my first emotional reaction when my child came to me about this lanyard, and she of course came to me, was, how could you be so stupid, right? That was emotional, and then thoughtfully I was like, great, this is an issue the world is dealing with, and we parented through it, and I'm glad for it, right? But this is a hell of a thing to put on teachers' necks. You better believe this is a real, powerful concern for parents, and address it as such. Just as a real concern, not a gaslight conversation. Try to understand that the more dialogue we have about this, the better. Just like you're trying to encourage conversations with students and help students, please take that mindset towards parents as well. This is serious. The school and the parents need to at least cooperate, if not defer to the parents on such complicated issue, though deferral is certainly in order if compromise cannot be reached. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Vin?
I have no one on my list, but would anybody who did not speak like to speak yet? Who did not speak?
Okay. Administrators and board members will respond afterward. I'd like to make a motion to close public comments. Do I have a second? Susie, any discussion? No? I see none. All in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. Would anyone from the board or the administration like to comment?
I do.
Okay, Jeff.
So I want to thank Ms. Seward. When I was asking Aldo about the lanyards, that's what I was asking. As a counselor, I'm there for all my students, not just for LGBTQ, but for all the other underrepresented groups. So that's why I was asking, do these lanyards have symbols? That is not what I heard. So when Mr. Allen explained it, thank you. Having QR codes changes everything, and knowing that there are certain symbols is different. But I am here and I am safe is very different than that. So that's a conversation that should have been explained more.
And I'm going to piggyback on that because and Aldo, you could attest to it with the email you just read and all the emails before. It never said anything about a QR code. Never. So if QR code, it makes it a big difference.
It really does.
In the situation because you don't know when you have a QR code, you're not sure where that is sent or where that goes and where it goes deeper into other things.
And
so
that it was specific.
So this is, I want to make, go.
No, and it was specific for one group. I had no idea. The
That
three
changes-
words, I am here, are great words. But if it's specific for one group, go ahead. Sorry, Randy.
So what I'm going to say is that I would move this immediately to, well, not immediately, but I'd move this to the policy committee to discuss it. And now it makes sense together, based on the gentleman's comment, with regards to, and I think we can do this, Mark, you would have to talk about this, whether we could exclude QR codes or some kind of stuff like that.
Do we have proof? Like, do we have, like...
It sounds like he explained that it comes from a very specific website, though. So maybe we can, encourage those words, but not that specific lanyard with the QR code.
I think we should look at, you want to say we'll look into it further, or I don't know. That's not nice. Like, we talk about respect. Come on, seriously? We're all working hard here. You may not agree, but I'm not going to argue with you.
Sir,
You've been warned
sir,
like 4 times.
Sir, Tom,
Mr.
you
Slattery,
with us?
It happens
Yeah.
again. I shouldn't have to be interrupted from the cheap seats. I'm happy to have a conversation with you.
I'm a little confused.
So our staff members are not using QR codes, having conversations with students about vibrators. Let me just, that was what was spoken. That is absolutely not happening. So as far as what those resources are, we don't utilize them, but I don't want any of our staff members using resources that are not vetted. Completely agree. So absolutely is not happening and absolutely should not happen in any way, shape, or form. So, well, we already have had hard discussions about these badges. So those resources are not used. They're just not.
So we have to figure out. We have to figure out a way here then, because thank you for explaining exactly what this lanyard is, because an I am here with no background information is a very different experience than what you just described. And I don't think he was saying that our teachers are directing kids to that website. I was just saying it's an element that's there on that QR code, and we have to, that is not approved content. No. It's not part of our curriculum.
Not at all.
So we need to not have that happen. So we have to figure out how to make that not happen, right? I mean,
it's not happening, but it is absolutely not happening. Kids are not scanning QR codes and badges, and they're not. They're absolutely not doing that.
We can go to the policy committee.
You can.
And we could put in a policy that would say, regardless of student, because a student could come in with a QR code on their shirt, and anybody could scan it. And we don't know where that would lead.
They could.
So what I'm suggesting is it possible for us to have a discussion in policy to say that any kind of QR code or new technology that would, because we don't know what a QR code be gone in 2 years. So what I'm saying is that we have that technology available, that we ban that technology unless it's vetted. Something of that effect.
You could certainly defer that to a policy committee to kind of explore the issue of QR codes and what we're going to allow or not allow, as the case may be, yes.
So, okay. So that's all I want.
You got it. Happy to do that. Dr. Heller.
Is there a way to actually see what lanyards they're wearing? Because I haven't.
Does anybody have an example?
I haven't seen it.
I don't think there's too many of these at all.
I just wasn't
We
sure.
can certainly get a copy, sure.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Wait, hold
ladies
on.
and gentlemen, we've asked you, please, this is the board discussion now. It's not supposed to be a back and forth, and we appreciate it. It's very distracting when people are calling out and we're trying to have a meaningful discussion here. Okay? Thanks.
Alda.
Are you guys saying that you didn't understand that what this conversation and the lanyards were about until these people came up to speak when there was 4 emails sent to us by Mr. Jankowski in the last month?
It never said.
Are you guys serious right now? Come on.
I am serious. It's
It never said
wait a minute,
anything
hold
about a
on.
QR
In
code.
any of those emails, there's no specifics. There's no background. There's no picture. There's no. How do we know what it's what? I did read the email, sir. Why are you walking away? Stay here and have the conversation. Don't walk away. Let's have a conversation. That's what you all ask us to do. So don't walk away and not have the conversation. In none of those emails did I see any information with specifics about what is a lanyard and what was on the lanyard outside of a I am here.
Please don't listen. The comments that I don't know what I'm doing and I don't know what's going on. Please, you're standing here making accusations, throwing stones. No one has anything real wrong that anyone in this district did. It's the sky might fall. Absolutely. I'm not interested in hearing you. Stop calling out.
Guys,
Mr.
please,
Grant,
please,
Tom, can you
please.
please give him a final warning? We've asked you to stop calling out, Mr. Grant, or we're going to have to ask you to be removed. Don't want to do that.
We absolutely,
Please.
kids are not scanning anything inappropriate. Period. Period. That's it. So I'm going to go back to answering the rest. And I think that outburst was completely unprofessional. So, Mrs. Seward, why just an LGBTQ lanyard? That's just what that lanyard is, but we create safe spaces everywhere. That's the whole concept of what we do. So every school, and it's more predominant in middle schools at time than elementaries, that is what we do. So we're not, you said you were uncomfortable with the narrative about it's the only safe space. That is absolutely not what we convey in any way, shape, or form. So that, you can't point me to any communication or anything that a principal has said that school is the only safe place. You just can't. So, and honestly, it's not at all. It should be a safe place and a safe space, but home should also be that equal safe space. So,
May I ask a question then, Dr. Hibbs?
Sure, you can interrupt me, sure.
Thank you.
No
I
problem.
asked last month about policy 5756, as I had never heard of it before. It's the
Transgender.
Transgender
Go ahead.
students. Now, when I asked about it last month, you just said, I don't know what it is, and we continued. Okay. I looked it up for myself to just understand what I was hearing in the public comments and the concerns from the community. I see a lot of it is terminology and definitions. I just have a question, though, regarding policy 5756. And it comes into, in the first in the...
Paragraph starting?
No, in the paragraph starting with confidentiality and privacy. When a student comes in with concerns like this, now, what happens with the district? So, if somebody in district comes to someone, a faculty member, whoever it is, that, and they initiate the conversation, and it says, school staff members may not disclose information that may reveal a student's transgender status except as allowed by law. The principal or designee is advised to work with the student to create an appropriate confidentiality plan regarding the student's transgender or transitioning status. Okay. The school's district shall keep a confidential, current, new, or prospective student's transgender status. The school should address the students using a chosen name and the student's birth name. And the birth name should be kept confidential by school and school staff members. If this happens, right, and the child wants to identify as something else, are the parents being notified?
You just read it, sir. No, you just.
Well, can you answer it for me? Are they?
I'll read it again for you. So, confidentiality and privacy. School staff members may not.
Okay, so they're not. They're not notifying
That's what you read,
parents.
sir.
Okay.
May
Now,
not
is this
disclose
the
the
same group
information
of
that may reveal a student's transgender status except as allowed by law.
Okay.
And if you keep going forward and reading the rest of the policy, there are extenuating circumstances where we have to have conversations with children, for instance, an HIB, because that would be a document that would go to parents if they were using a different name.
Right.
And that, just to be clear, our policy pretty much tracks verbatim the New Jersey Department of Education.
That doesn't mean it's right, though, Mr.
You didn't
Zimmerman.
let me finish.
No, but that doesn't mean it's
Did
right.
I say it was right? I just wanted to be
No,
clear from the
no one's saying
audience
it's right.
that the policy tracks the New Jersey Department of Education transgender policy. That's all.
Yep.
I just wanted to be clear
I
that that's not
understand.
something we made out of thin air. That's all.
No, I appreciate that. Given that this, that this group of students, we've been told numerous times, have, the highest suicide rates and things like that, wouldn't it make more sense to contact the parents so that the parents can help them instead of just eliminating the parents from the equation altogether?
It would, but I mean, it's the law.
So, I can only speak from experience. I can't speak specifically to Marlboro. I think districts do reach out to parents in certain situations involving students that have come out as transgender or have gender identity issues, depending on the facts and circumstances of each case. So I don't think that there's a hard and fast rule either way. That's my own personal experience as an attorney dealing with this in a lot of districts.
And wasn't this, I remember when this came up in policy committee years ago, a couple years ago when I first started on the board, and this was one of the new policies or one of the policies that we were revisiting. And I remember we were sitting around the table, and Elder, you were not there at the time, it was the policy committee. And I remember I had a problem with it too, because how could you just accept it and not go back to the parents? The kids are so young, it's K through 8. And we discussed it, and we discussed that while it is being mandated to us from the state of New Jersey, pretty much adopting this policy, there were ways to go about it with accepting this policy by having certain conversations with the student, bringing in the parents, alluding to the parents, when that,
Hold on.
that,
There,
go ahead.
Listen, Mark, I'm going to disagree with you a little bit. So, when you look at our policy, it's very clear. There's mitigating circumstances where we as a district will have conversations with parents. And it mostly all flows through when a conversation with a parent is absolutely going to let them know that their child is transgendered or has changed the name. So when you look at our policy, there may be instances, and I'm not saying I agree. I want to be very clear. The policy and the law is such that this is the way it's written. School staff members may not disclose information that may reveal a student's transgender status except as allowed by law. The principal or designee is advised to work with the student to create an appropriate confidentiality plan. In other words, in case the conversation with the parents needs to happen and the child has not had a conversation with their parent or guardian, that they have a way to have that conversation because they're protecting the child. Again, I am not saying that the role of the parent is not important. I think it's paramount. This is not my law. This is not my rule. This is not my policy. The school district shall keep confidential a current, new, or prospective student's transgender status. School should address the student using a chosen name, and the student's birth name should be kept confidential by school and staff members. So there may be times where a parent is not notified. And again, I'm not saying I didn't write this law, but it is not as if it could go either way. It's where, at the end of the day, parent is not notified immediately.
I don't want to, yeah. I'd prefer not to discuss legal opinions any further in a public forum. We can certainly talk as a board in closed session. It is certainly attorney-client privilege, and I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I just following up, Aldo, we have as a board talked about this in private discussions quite a bit the past couple of years. So we can revisit it in private again, but this has been brought up before. So
Does anybody else have any other comments?
Dr. Heller.
Trish. Oh, I don't care.
Go for it.
I was gonna, let's see. There's been so much said. So just, Annette, I hear what you're saying, but just to be clear, no one said parents are not important or parents aren't a safe place. So I just, sometimes you hear things and maybe I think this happens to me, it happens to everybody, right? We say things and people hear it differently, right? So please, it's okay. Okay, so anyway. Okay, so I just wanted you to know that I didn't think that they were separate. I mean, I think school is a safe place, but obviously parents are a safe place too. So I don't know, I just heard that and I just felt like I needed to make that comment. Okay, so with regards to the whole inclusion conversation, so, I went back and listening to the exchange that happened, there was some confusion. I did receive emails about my comments, and so I think that, and Mr. Ballone, you can jump in too, but again, like, Mr. Ballone nor I made the grouping of the people with disabilities and people with sexual and gender identities. That was not our idea. That's not the language that we came up with. It is the definition of the lawmakers that created that policy. So just a little background. In March of 2021, Governor Murphy signed into law the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Act. The bill was brought to the New Jersey Assembly under the bill title, requires school districts to include instruction on diversity and inclusion as part of the implementation of New Jersey student learning standards. The bill was introduced. It was sponsored by Assembly people, not in Monmouth, but in the state, and it included this directive: encourage safe, welcoming, and inclusive environments for all students, regardless of race or ethnicity, sexual or gender identities, mental and physical disabilities, and religious beliefs. Again, to be clear, please, it's not that Mr. Ballone and I made that grouping. That is the law. And so I just wanted to be clear because sometimes I think it is a little confusing. Now, the state standards, that happens with the Department of Education, and if you want to clarify any more, that would be great.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what I was pointing to. I think the other piece that's really important here is, and I'm going to quote again today like I did at the last meeting, I'm using your words, not mine, and you're saying we twisted your words. I actually quoted exactly what you said. And then today you said, I meant LGBTQ, but that's not what you said. So my response was literally verbatim what Mrs. Daywad said, and I was just responding to it. Anything else related to that? Because then I'll answer Mrs. Vysotsky's question.
No, I guess just that I wasn't trying to, I mean, obviously you were upset, and I upset you, and I apologize for that, but I heard it differently, and that's all I was trying to do was clarify.
And Mrs. Vysotsky, we are required, there's a 60-day requirement. Hi, how are you? There's a 60-day requirement for us once scores are released to report out to the public, and that's already, that report has been prepared by me and will be presented next week, as well as the DLM results. So students who did not take NJSLA took the dynamic learning maps. Those will also be reported by special services.
Yeah, I just want to, again, I want to make sure that words are powerful, right? And we don't really have a way of digging into words. So it's really important that when you stand up, you explain. I think I caught Mrs. Daywad in today's discussion. I think I caught the words illicit sexual acts. Again, we are not teaching illicit sexual acts in any way, shape, or form to our kids. We're not brainwashing our kids. I do agree there's always room for improvement, absolutely. You know, you talk about focus on academics. We have a ridiculously strong focus on academics. I mean, I don't know that, well, okay. We are, there's always room for improvement. Tom Brady can improve, you know, everybody can improve. So that's neither here nor there. We do have a focus on academics. Mike, thanks for being thankful and respectful as always. It's always a pleasure. And then Mr. Davelman, you know, I give grace to everybody. Is Mr. Davelman still here? No? To address Mr. Davelman, I give grace to everybody. I was asking Mr. Patrono to explain himself because his argument or his discussion point just wasn't connecting for me. And I'll finish with, you know, we talk about emails, right? So when emails get sent in saying we entice kids into sexually based conversations, we belittle, we disparage, we initiate, you tie molesting children into it, I'm allowed to disagree with that. I am. And if I didn't disagree with that, it would mean that all that stuff absolutely could be happening, and they're just not. So I'm going to tell you what's really happening in our schools because I'm poised to do that. That's it, sir.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, so I'm going to make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? Jess, any discussion? I have none. All in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. Have a good night, ladies and gentlemen. Be safe and healthy, and